Hi, it has been a while since I've made a long video, and it's just been a busy summer at my house and I don't do this full time, so that's just kind of the way it is. But I am excited. Today I've been out, it's lovely, it's cooler than it's been in a while, and I've been gardening and I was cooling off in the pool afterwards, and I thought, it's time. We should talk about one of the most commonly asked questions that I get, which is, what the heck is a shade house? And tell us more about this. I get this question a lot. I get it on Instagram, I get it on my Substack, I get it on my blog itself, I get it all over the place. And so it's time, while I've shown you photos, we've never actually kind of done a video walkthrough. So today I'm going to walk you through, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we came to create the shade house in the first place, show you some plants, obviously, and tell you a little bit about how my family and I use this amazing space, which is truly one of my favorite parts of our garden. Before we get started, I'm just going to apologize. I've said this before. I live near an airport, and there's somebody who's clearly getting a new roof today in my neighborhood. So there's just a lot of noise, and I don't live out in the country. I'm in a suburban area, so we just have the noises that go along with that. So where did this idea for a shade house come from in the first place? Well, you can see it right here behind me. And it's actually a very central feature in our backyard now. But a few years ago, obviously that wasn't the case. We had a really large maple tree. You can actually see it right behind me. It was a very old 70-year-old maple tree. That's not all that old for most parts of the world where maple trees grow, but here that's pretty old, and it was sick and we had to have it taken down. And we lost all of the shade in our entire yard. And I'm a pretty fair-skinned person. I wear sunscreen constantly. I worry about sun exposure, and I also really like shade plants. And so all of those things, we had to figure out, how are we going to create more shade? We didn't have time to let another tree get to 70 years old, so it was providing a ton of shade. So what were we going to do? So we started looking around, and one day I was watching an episode of Gardener's World, which is a BBC program. If you've never watched Gardener's World, I highly, highly recommend it. There's a woman who is often on. Her name is Advali Richmond. She is a gardening journalist and historian, and she did a segment at one point that featured Victorian shade houses. So these were structures that were built during the Victorian era in the 1800s in England, largely to house rare plant collections. And they didn't have to be in a greenhouse, because either they went into a greenhouse in the winter, or a glass house or something, or went inside during the winter, or they were in a part of England where the winters weren't cold enough that they needed to be tucked inside. And these shade houses were places for plant collections, but then they were also places for recreation and leisure and creating shade in the backyard. And I watched that and I thought, that is exactly what we need. It is the answer to our problems. We had kind of a master plan for our backyard that we have been unrolling bit by bit over time. We, at that point, had not built our deck. I have a great video all about our deck that we built last summer, but we hadn't built that yet. We had plans for it, but we do things as we can afford to and as we have time. So the shade house came first. And the first thing we did was have the posts put in, and it really took us 2 years to finish it. Not because it's really hard, but because it was a little time consuming, and we do things as we have time and money. Some people would call this a pergola or a covered patio, and that's certainly what it is in an American context, but it is truly designed around the idea of a shade house. And so we call it the shade house because of that. It has this historical precedent, and it's a place that we spend all kinds of time. Okay, so you can see the shade house is right off the pool. We're on the deck right now, and then we come into the shade house. And I will drop a link I have a big video about building our deck, which we absolutely love. And so I'll drop a link for that too. But here you can see kind of the whole shade house. We have the dining area, then we have the living area, and then beyond that is my plant nursery. And the shade house itself is 12 feet wide by 20 feet long, so it is not small. We did all of the construction on this ourselves except having the concrete put down. We did hire a contractor to come in and put down the concrete, and oddly enough, we actually had built almost the entire structure before we decided, well, we really should have concrete put down. We had entertained other ideas for the floor, including putting down like a shady grass and putting in gravel, but we decided that concrete was the way to go. And I'm really glad we did. It makes the whole thing much more livable. So as we come in here, let's talk about plants, of course, first. And I have lots of plants. They are somewhat shade tolerant, but they do still get sun. So this is really a part shade situation. And especially on this side. So I am growing, this is Kinsley's Ghost. It's a native honeysuckle, and I'll walk over here so you can see it. That's growing up the side of the shade house there. And eventually that will cover this. This is the south side of the shade house, so it will make the shade house really shady in the summer, which is the goal, honestly. So I'm super excited about that. But like many native plants, it's a little slow to go, and that's okay. So up in the top here, so my vision for all of this was truly to be surrounded by plants. And so I needed something cheap up at the top. These are spider plants, which are normally house plants, right? But I planted them last summer. I overwintered them in the greenhouse, and they are fantastic. I love how they drape. I love how they move in the wind. And it's kind of a windy day today, so they're fabulous. And so they'll just go in the greenhouse, live in there for the winter, and they're fantastic. Below them, in these black planters, and these are from Vera Deck. I will drop links for anything I can down in the description. But here I have heuchera and hostas. They will not overwinter here. I buy them, and then in the fall, I will plant them out in the landscape in a place where they'll be happy, because there's just not enough soil depth in these planters for them to survive the winters there. So those are the primary plants. And I have hanging baskets up here, and then I have some other potted plants that are kind of part sun, part shade, happy as clams in here to make this a really just kind of lovely place to relax. One of the questions I often get is, do you really keep flowers on your table outside all the time? And I do. So this is where I cut bouquets for inside, and anything that's kind of left over or didn't quite work the way I wanted it to, or isn't going to last very long, it goes into those little vases. And so there are cut flowers on the table all the time. The sitting area back here, we have these two couches with a coffee table in between. I will be honest, a nap here in the afternoon after a swim in the pool is about my perfect day. I mean, truly, it is a fabulous place to be. This gets morning sun too down here, and so especially when it's cooler, that's a great place for coffee in the morning and reading a little news before getting my day started. It's wonderful. So I spend a lot of time down here. And we do have covers for this furniture, I will say, because of course, while this is shaded, it's not completely protected from the elements. So when you look at the way the shade house was built, so we have this kind of post structure, and then we had a hard time deciding like how were we going to cover it, how much were we going to cover, and we finally landed on these strips. These strips are called lath, and if you've ever had a house with lath and plaster walls, these are the strips of wood that are inside holding the plaster up, basically. They're very cool. They have not, they're very thin and they warp, and I like this waney kind of irregular look that they've created. I feel like that just is another nod to the Victorian shade house, which was not always super regular too. So I really love this, and they're cheap. So like if one breaks, we just replace it and it's totally fine. But they work really well. The spacing, you'll notice, so they're the width of a lath piece in between each one. So that cuts the sun by about 50%. That wasn't quite enough. So I'm going to show you the roof here. I also got this sunshade. This is from Coolaroo. Again, I'll link to everything. And that stretches across the top. It doesn't go all the way, corner to corner, everything, but it does give us really, really good shade. And you can't see it today because it's such a cloudy day, but it really does give us at noon on a hot, bright, sunny day, you still have plenty of shade, which is so nice. The sun came out just as I was finishing filming, and I wanted to show you one of my favorite things about the lath is this stripy pattern that we get with the shadows. I just love that stripe of light and dark. This is the area that we used to call the stage. My son liked to do performances, and during the pandemic we built this. It was literally out in the middle of the yard with nothing else around it at that time, and he, it was a great place to play and to kind of use his imagination. That isn't as much of a part of his life, at least not in our backyard, and so it has become my plant nursery. You can see the greenhouse is behind it, and this is a place where I can start seeds outside when the greenhouse is too hot, like especially right about now, starting fall planting seeds. I also can harden things off here. So I kind of commandeered the stage this spring, and I don't think I'm going to be giving it back anytime soon. It's been fantastic. It's a nice place to sit, and we added another sunshade here that just keeps it from baking. There certainly is still plenty of sun, but I was able to harden off things and really make it a useful space. You can also see back here, I have these amazing raised planters. They are from Earth Easy. They're cedar, and they are awesome. I can't even tell you how much I love them. I'll drop the links below. But over here, I have lettuces growing. Over here, it's herbs, and that has been a big part of kind of our summer garden this summer. And being able to put it under shade, things haven't bolted quite as quickly, which has been a major bonus. So that's it. A little peek into our shade house. I absolutely love it out here and spend as much time as I possibly can. If you have questions or comments, please be sure to drop them below and I will get back to you. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Happy gardening.